What's up guys, and welcome back to WBC Builds, and welcome to my brand new series called From Bricks to Blocks, the series focusing on how to bring real life inspiration into the game of Minecraft. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, my main source of inspiration has to be Google Maps, and for some reason this week, I've decided to spend a lot of my time looking around these parts of Hampshire. These are very small little villages, and I discovered this small little village of Braunton here. Now within Braunton there is a house I want to build for you guys today, and that is this beautiful Flint house right here. The moment I saw it I knew I had to bring it into the game. So let's jump on over into Minecraft itself. I'm going to show you guys how to get started with this, and how to choose the colour palettes and get some building techniques on the go. So let's do that. Now, throughout this series, I want to be taking requests from you guys on things you would like to see me build. This is going to be a series where we actually learn together. Now, I'm going to be doing stuff that's outside of my comfort zone, outside of my styles. This one today is actually a Tudor house, which isn't really my forte at all, so I thought it'd be quite an interesting one to do. But for sure, please, in the comments below, leave me ideas and suggestions on how you wish this series to go. It is going to be very much tailor-made for you guys to watch along with. So yeah, let's get straight into it then. So the colour palette I want to go for this is, well, quite obvious if you think about it. And for me, Flint is definitely, a coral type thing. So we're going to go for some dead coral, maybe some dead horn coral, dead coral block as well, bubble coral. But to mix in with that, there was clearly some brick. As you can see on screen now, we've got the house up as well. And this is kind of the idea with this. You've got to pick some blocks out first, and then you can start working with it. Now, what I'm going to choose here is some acacia wood. This can also be used as a flint as well. But for me, I'm going to use it as our base course, as it's kind of got a darker look to it than the actual brick we're going to be using as well, which I think looks quite nice. But you can see here how the coral works to look like a somewhat of a actual piece of flint, which is really good. So the idea of this is you need to keep flicking backwards and forwards between your inspiration and what you're building to get a clearer picture of what you want to do. So if we flip back over to Google Maps right now, the house itself is definitely a rectangle shape here with 3 windows across the front. Now the windows are not equally sized. You've got 2 wider windows on the edges with a smaller, skinnier window in the center. For me, this is instantly saying these should be 3x2 and these should be 2x2. But actually, I think for the scale of this building, we should go down to 2x2 for this sort of square. I know it's not a square, but bear with. And then for this one, we'll do a 2x1 as it's a bit more of a narrower window. Once you get your window sizes sort of detailed in your head, you get a clearer understanding of what your building is going to look like. Now, I usually go for a sort of rule of thumb with windows of them being 2x3, and you can then put some trapdoors inside to give you a bit of definition. Now, another key thing to do when you're looking at a real life building is to look at the sort of defining features of it. So clearly we need to put 1 block of bricks along the edge like this, but we may also need to put a whole block of bricks through here as well. What you can see is we have these polychromatic different coloured bricks in here, which actually gives me an understanding this house may be Victorian, but I'm going to call it Tudor for now. So these need to be sort of somehow outlined in our building as well. Could be done with a slab above the window that's a different colour, maybe stone bricks. But still, I'm not entirely sure how we're going to get this detail around the windows, because I don't want the walls to be, this is going to be 1 block wide, this is possibly going to be 2, and then we're going to have a 2 block wide window in here. I don't really want another block either side of the window, so we may have to forego this detail around the windows. Maybe not in the centre. We'll get back to the centre in a second because it's going to match up the doorway. But you can see here. Now the other key thing about this building is the roof. So the roof is full of texture, and it's also a sort of orange colour. So for me, this is definitely screaming granite. I don't know if it screamed granite at you, but it's screaming granite at me. And it's going to mix up some polished granite along with some normal granite, but also to get this mossy colour in here and a bit of different colour, I'm also going to go for some stone brick stairs. I think that will look great. We're not going to build this other little section here. We're just going to stick to the main building like this. Then we've got 2 chimneys up here. One looks a bit newer than the other, and it's also sort of centered rather than this one's off to the side. We'll get those in as well. Now it's time to look around the edges of the building, because that's also where some of the details lie. You can see here we've got a nice ridge up here. I've got an idea how to do that. I'm thinking flower pots or maybe stairs. These also flower pots and even anvils. I'll show you that in a bit. But you can see at the back of the house as well, we have got an extension out there, so it's going to be a L-shaped building rather than a square. And also we've got this polychromatic sort of bricks up through here as well. These blue bricks that we can also detail in there, maybe with some stone bricks in the walls. So with that being said, we've got a clearer understanding picture of what we want to do. This little porchway and door, now I've thought about this quite hard, and I don't want to use quartz for it. I think quartz is too overpowering, it doesn't really work. I'm going to use something a bit darker. I'm going to use some dark oak fencing, also some stone bricks for the roof, so we'll get onto that again. But as you can see, there's lots of greenery here, so when we get around to finishing off the building, greenery is king. So I hope you guys understand that's how I like to process a building when I look at it. I look at the key features and try and whittle it down into how that would fit into Minecraft itself. Let's jump back over it into the game and get started with the left-hand corner. Right, so after inspecting the building once again, we've seen the initial inspection yielded that colour palette, and once we went back to look at it, we noticed the rest of the details in there, and that is kind of how you got to do this. You've got to keep flicking backwards and forwards between your inspiration. Now, to get on to the actual building itself, I spoke about having the left-hand corner is where we start, and that's where we're going to start in here. So what I'm going to do is place these logs so they're actually lengthways, get a better detail. It looks a bit more like a brick that way. Come around this side and do the same. Now, for me, I always like to start in the left-hand corner because obviously you read a book left to right. But also, I'm then going to go up by 2 blocks here. If we flip back to the image for a second, you can kind of see not anything of the actual base, but what you can do on Street View is luckily go back in time a little bit and see different angles where the car has taken a different picture. Now, what we can see here is possibly there is another course of brick along there that ties in with the bottom of the windows. I don't know, that's quite ambiguous, but we're gonna go with it anyway. Now, what we can do is start layering in the flint as well. I'm going to use just one type of coral for a second, and then we can go back through and texture it later on. So I spoke about window sizes to you earlier on. Now, for me, windows are, as I said, 2x3 usually. That is my rule of thumb. Just a quick little thing, I'm using the texture pack, which is the WBC's texture pack. If you want to find out more about that, please join our Discord. All it's done is just added a little window frame to these windows, which I think work really well. Now, for these windows, they were slightly taller than the ones above. Were they slightly wider as well? Interesting. I think for this, we're going to do it so that because the window panes were actually quite detailed, I'm going to put another pane of glass behind. Now, this should act as a way of acting like a little sort of, I guess, another seam inside. It can work, and especially with shaders on, it does work quite well. What you've also noticed is I've taken the liberty of actually not including any of the brick around the corners of the window, and that is because there isn't any space. Already this is quite wide, and I don't think we'll be able to fit any more details around there. What I have kind of got in my head now is an understanding of the shape of the building. So if we carry this on a little bit up, the window here I think is going to stay at that size of 2x2. But in actual fact, I kind of think we need to put a little ledge underneath it. So for this, I'm going to choose a darker block than what we had before. I don't think we're going to use, actually yes, we could use, let's use stone brick and see what that looks like. So this brings it off the ground slightly and gives it a little bit of definition under there. Now we're going to go up again and carry that on so we're not losing anything with that detail. So the next step is to try and work out what we want to do with the top here. If we flick back over to the Google Maps now, you can kind of see it's got an archway in it, and that's not really possible in Minecraft, but what we can do is place some slabs above it, and that might give you a nice little understanding of how we can do that. So what I'm thinking of doing here as well is adding in a little bit of depth behind the window. So I'm going to go across and place in some walls above there, some brick walls, and that should help with adding a little bit of extra colour to this. Now I'm going to go in and grab out some slabs. I'm going to use some brick slabs and also stone brick slabs, and place these two above like that so you can see the wall behind it, these two like this. Now that gives that window a little bit of definition and a little bit of style, which I think looks quite nice, but it also makes it feel a bit taller than 2x2, which is also what we need to go for. So we're going to carry on this level up here, got another level of flint going in, and above that I think it's time to put in the first course of the brick. If we go back to the image, you can kind of see, yeah, it's always, almost up. It's actually on the same level of the window. And this again is just the best way of getting the understanding of what you want from your image, from your reference image into the game. Keep flicking backwards and forwards. So we've now got the second window going in. Fill up the wall here with the flint again. So this window is going to be stuck at that size, and I think that will look really nice now. Yeah, there we go. So you get the proportions in there quite nicely. So I'm going to build this all the way up one more level and place another course of brick across the top. I think that's kind of what we want to do. So when I say I think, I am trying to remember the image in my head. I'm not looking at the image at all until I go back over to Google Maps and then go, is that what I thought I saw? Yes, it is kind of what I thought I saw. You can't really get too much more detail in there. What you can do possibly is add that above to give it a little bit more definition. We'll see how that looks later on. But coming on to the rest of the building itself, this will get mirrored over to there, but we need something to mirror it across, and that is the front door. So we're going to come in here and just carry this all the way up like so, and that will give us an idea of where the front door can go. So we've got 2 blocks wide here from the edge, then we've got a strip of brick like that, so we can do the same over here. Strip of brick like that, also carry this on like so. So the door is going to sit in the center of this like that. I think that looks about right. I'm just going to grab out a door and put that in there. So I like to go for dark oak doors for any of my Victorian or sort of traditional builds, because I always think it looks much better than actually having, you know, a spruce door or something like that. So we're going to put in the porchway like this. So bring it out, a little stairway up to it like so. Now I mentioned when we were looking at it, I didn't like the sort of white on there, so I'm going to go for something dark, and also this complements the door really nicely. So it was a little archway across the top of the door. I'm going to use just a little frame here with some gates across the top like that. Now what I want to do here is carry on this idea of the stone slabs, and I think that looks really nice across the top like so. Hey presto, there we are. So that's kind of the idea for the door. I think behind this here, we're placing a little bit of brick like that. And it's now going to go up to the window level here. Once I get this little window in, I'm going to, you know, fill in the rest of this build quite quickly as we move on to the sides. So this window sits in like that. You know, it's obviously quite basic and quite small. I already don't like this, so that comes back out again. Now, what I do want to do here is actually give this window a bit more definition. So I'm going to put some brick around it like so. Come on down and grab out this stone brick again and keep going like that. And you can see the iterative process I go through in order to actually try and get a design out of it. So what I'm already looking at here is I think there needs to be some brick across the bottom to tidy it off a little bit. So I'm going to go through and add that course in there. And you know what? I think that's starting to look really nice. Right, I'm going to get this other side built quickly, and then we're going to go around and see how the roof works. Okay, so looking at it, I didn't like the stone bricks under the windows, so I went back through and changed it out for some andesite stairs. Now, to get the roof in place, you have to come around to the side and try and work out how deep you want the building. So for me, I'm going to count in from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have the wall come up to here, and that will be the peak where the chimney is going to go. We'll get on to exactly how tall that is in a second. Then we're going to count out another 4 from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to count another 3 from there, so it's 4 up to the centre as well. So we've got 3 and 3. This will all become apparent in a second. Now, like I said, this isn't a tutorial. This is me just showing you guys my thought process on how I'd like to build. And a lot of the time, it is all just very random, very sporadic, very much just, oh, that might look good there. Oh, that might look good. So it's really hard when I come to doing tutorials to try and pinpoint exactly what needs to go where. Because for me, I'm just working through the motions as we build. As I place per block, you know exactly what's going on. So for this roof here, as I mentioned before, we're going to be using some granite and some polished granite as well, just to get in that bit of texture, but also the mossy stone bricks, which I think are going to look really good. So what I've done here is also overhanged the window out by 1 here, so we've got it sitting just above the windows like this. So I'm going to go through and hand texture this out. I always hand texture my stairs because I can't do it with Word Edit because I'm not that clever. And I think this again looks really good as a way of getting a bit of extra detail in there. So you can clearly see now how tall this roof's going to be, 1, 2, 3, 4 high. And then we've got the chimney up here. Now once you put a chimney on a building, it really starts to bring it together. Look, even just out there, you can really start to see what's going on. But if I remember correctly from the reference image we looked at, there is a sort of course of mossy sort of area around here. Now you don't have to put too much in, you don't have to go mental, but you do kind of just want to get a bit of a taste in there, a bit of a texture, and also the actual using of the normal granite brings in that texture as well. Okay, so I've gone through and added the rest of the roof in and done a little bit more up there. Now it's time to put the central chimney in. This was sitting a little bit further up than that chimney was, and I'm going to put it about there. Now I do remember, because the way chimneys are and they spread a bit of water around them, this could be where the channel of sort of moss has grown down. So I'm going to keep adding that in like so. This chimney is going to be 2 blocks wide because I feel that's always a good shape, as in deep, but you know, only maybe 3 blocks high. Now what I do for my chimneys, and not many people do this, is use anvils. And the reason behind that is I love the shape the anvil gives. There is just something about an anvil that works like a chimney pot. Don't ask me why. Everyone's probably screaming in the comments going, why aren't you using flower pots? We will be using flower pots, don't worry. Flower pots are also part of this. So, and it's just a case of, wow, okay. Anvils, I would never expect to use them. And people always do question my anvil usage. But still, so what I'm going to do through here is I've kind of had a thought about this. I think flower pots are going to work really well as giving you that little ridge that we had across the top of the building. Stairs, if you look over here, look a bit too prominent. You can see clearly which one looks a bit more subtle, and it's definitely not those. So we're going to get rid of these and just carry on that flower pot motif across the whole thing. Now what you've got yourself is the entirety of a building, really. From here on out, it is just guesswork as to what the back looks like, because obviously Street View doesn't go into people's gardens, although I would really like Street View to go in people's gardens. No, I wouldn't. I'm not that evil, although I do look quite evil here. Okay, anyway, so what we want to do is just build up this wall. So I'm going to use some World Edit here to texturize this wall. And I encourage all of you to give World Edit a go if you are working on Java at all. So for me, I'm going to change it to granite and a bit of 45. 45 is the old code for bricks, and that will give you a nice little bit of texture in the walls. As I mentioned before, we're going to put some polychromatic sort of details in there, and I'm saying polychromatic like you guys understand what that means. It means different coloured bricks or different colours. It's Greek. I don't entirely know why I call it that. I think that's a technical term for what it is, so I tend to just go for it. But what it's going to do is sit underneath, sort of maybe one layer below, and that gives you a nice little archway in there. Again, it's just a subtle bit of detail that you put in just to try and make the building look a bit better. And obviously this building, you know, looks like one colour at the moment, but it still works because it's bringing out a lot of the little features of the actual reference building. So for the back of the roof here, what you've got is the roof comes down straight away like that. So it sits back onto there and onto there. Now we're also going to have an overhang here as well. So, and trapdoors again just work really nicely as a little bit of detailing under that. And you can see now the building itself is tiny. It's a good little size building this. And it's going to carry on across this way. So I'm just going to arbitrarily count across this way until we get to around about there. And I'm going to bring this wall back as well. What I am going to do is bring it in by 1. Now the reason I'm going to do that is because the back sort of section I want to have an overhang as well, but I don't want the overhang to sit out past the side of the house. We'll get on to why that is in a second. Now I'm going to count this back by about, I don't know, 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we measure that, that should be about 7. That is 7. Let's go for 8. I like 8. I like even numbers for roofs, because I feel it actually gives a bit nicer pitch at the top. So I'm going to quickly fill in these walls. Okay, so we've got the 2 roofs on the go now. No overhang at the back here, but we will have an overhang on the side like that. What we want to do here is, because there's no chimney breast, is just actually place this this block maybe round itself, just because I'm lazy and can't bother to get the other ones out. And what happens here is, like I said, this sits 1 block behind, so you don't see it from the front, which I think looks quite a nice little detail. You know, you kind of want to keep yourself hidden away at the back like that. So let's build in the rest of this roof, and then we're going to get a little bit of gardening done at the front of the house. Okay, because I'm lazy, I'm not going to texture the back of this roof, and you know, you don't have to. What I tend to do is just build stuff for images usually, and if a building looks good from the front and the back doesn't really need to get shown off, I won't show off the back. And you know, people do call me out on it quite a bit. I'm just like, yeah, there's no back to it. So a final little touch that can really set a build off is adding a drain pipe to it. I like to use fences for this because it gives a nice skinnier look to it, but also the dark oak fence has a nice colour to it that matches a lot of our sort of accents on here. And there you go. Do you know what that just putting that on brings the building to life, like honestly. So what I'm going to do now is quickly get out into the gardening section of this. For me, I like to just put a little sort of bush out the front, and when I build bushes, I like to build them maybe 2 thick, maybe 3 thick. 3 thick is a bit extreme, don't listen to me on that one. But what I also like to do is give a little bit of texture underneath the fence and the actual hedge. So I'm going to use just some pod saw, and for the sort of purposes of this video, we're not going to go through and texture it too much because you're not going to see it under the hedge. But I'm going to do it so it's not actually a straight hedge, because that image we're basing it on kind of looked a bit wonky, a bit down an old road or something. Now you go through, double up your hedge, maybe 2 blocks high because it's a bit privacy, bit of keeps the neighbours out, stops them from peeping in, and this carries on along the front. Now once you get a little bit of green in here, the building really does just pop quite nicely, and I mean pop properly. For some reason greenery in the game just helps sets off so much stuff. I mean, just look at that, even without any texturing in there, this is already looking pretty good. So what I like to do with my hedges is add in the sort of opposite colour to it. So we're going to go through and add a bit of spruce in here. Now to me, spruce looks like ivy, and I think a lot of people agree with that as well. And this really does give you a nice little effect. Now if you are using World Edit, there is a little technique you can do to actually get a little bit of this on top of here. Let me show you that quickly now as a little sort of tips and tricks for those who are using World Edit. I'm going to use these blocks here, these are just cyan wool, to go across and add in the areas where I want some grass. So I'm going to go through and do right click and left click, get my area, and then go into here and type replace cyan space with grass. And look at that. So you get yourself a little bit of a bushy top to it. I mean, that's alright, isn't it? It is what it is. But for the house itself, I think it requires a little bit of, you know, maybe some crawling ivy that comes up here. So I don't know if we're going to keep that as it is or change it up. Now the way you got to sort of build yourself some foliage on the front of the buildings is kind of go all out at first and then see how it looks. I mean, you need to make it look like it's crawling up somewhere rather than just sort of sitting there, which is kind of what I've done here. But so that doesn't look too bad at all. And if we stand back here, we can hide ourselves away from here. Obviously what I want to do for the driveway is, you know, maybe leave it 1 block off of the hedge and bring it over to about here. And then we're going to set that as, I'm going to say grass path, because I like grass path. What you can do is go through and add a bit of texture to it, because not everyone likes how grass paths look naturally. For me, I'm going to add a little bit of coarse dirt, because I think coarse dirt just, it helps break it up and it doesn't look too obtuse either. Final little touches to do, go through here, add some more coarse dirt in, and just sort of, you know, throw some bushes around. But also get out your bone meal. Bone meal is a key ingredient to any house beautification. Go through and just give yourself a nice little flower bed down the front there. You know, you could also just put in a couple of these to block it off like that. But honestly, guys, that is our reconstruction of that beautiful house we saw in Braunton Village. Let me show you it again so we can get a clear picture. Here it is on screen. So I'm not going to lie, I really enjoyed this little video on how to build this house. There we are, with the bit of foliage around it. So, you know, let's take a look at this building in shaders and see how that looks. Do you know what? That's come out really nicely. I'm really happy with how that is going. So guys, this has been my first ever From Bricks to Blocks. And you know what? We're going to learn together as we build. So please let me know in the comments below what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want me to slow down on, what you want me to actually explain more about, because I'm not entirely sure how the format of this video is going to go. This is very much the pilot episode of it. As you can see, the building is not that impressive, but to be honest, it's one of those buildings that would actually be fairly hard to bring into the game if you didn't really know the right techniques to use. So guys, without further ado, thank you for watching, and remember, get inspired, get building, and I'll see you next time.